This is the baler twine that I use to tie up my tomatoes. 20,000 foot spool, and I got 2 of these, and got a good deal on it. I think it was $28 for the 2. I think they must have been marked wrong. It seems cheap for that much, but this stuff works excellently, and I use it for all my tomatoes. And also for tomatoes, these are my shears. These are Fiskars, and they just work so well. Perfect size. They weren't too expensive, and they're perfect for pruning tomatoes. And pruning tomatoes, that's what I'm going to show you right now. And not that I'm an expert at it, but what I do seems to be working, and I'll pass that on, and then you can make your own decision. But maybe this will help. These are my tomatoes using the Mittleider system, and you can see my T-frames. The tomatoes are now growing over the top of the T-frames, and this is the Mittleider method. And using the Mittleider method, we use an 18-inch wide row, 30 feet long. I have an automatic watering system in it. You can see the white plastic pipe down there. Here is a typical tomato plant on the Mittleider system, and you can see the bottom, the leaves have been cut off, and you can see tons of tomatoes on it. And the tomato plant is a vine, and you can see the vine just goes up, grows vertical. We call that growing vertical. And let's go over on the other side, and I'll show you over here. Now, here's an example of a tomato vine that's been, the leaves have been pruned off. Now, I don't claim to be an expert. When I first started, I was very reluctant to cut these stems, these branches off. But the ones that grow on the bottom grow out and hang down, and they don't really do anything for you except get in the way, because this is the area down here where you want to fertilize. You put your weekly feed. So if this is all covered with foliage, it makes it impossible to get in there to put the fertilizer down. So this is a tomato plant that's been pruned. You leave enough foliage and enough leaves on it so that it still, through the process of photosynthesis, it still produces what it needs. And you can see that it just grows up and up and up, and that's going vertical. And when you prune your plants that way, here's another one. This is not a real good looking plant, but it's going vertical, and it's a vine. This is a vine that grows up, and here's a good example of a leaf here. This is a leaf that's damaged, so this is a good prospect to be pruned. So we just prune it like that. Prune that one. It had some damage or disease to it, and that's what we do. We prune that off, and then the tomatoes grow vertical, and they don't take up very much space. And in the Mittleider system, they say to plant your tomatoes 14 inches apart, and that's what I'll do next year. These are cherry tomatoes here. Alright, and then here's another one. Been pruned on the bottom, and I need some more pruning here because these are suckers. These are suckers that need to be pruned off. But tons of tomatoes on it, growing vertical. All right, now speaking of suckers, look at this right here. Here's a good example. Here's your main vine, here's a branch, and then right at the joint, this little growth here, that's a sucker, and you just pinch that off. Pinch that guy off, because this will turn into another main branch, and you don't want that. You want one main stem, one main vine, and if you have a bunch of these small ones like this one, here's another one. There's the main vine, and here's a branch, and here's a sucker, and here's another one. If we let that go, it'll turn into another main vine, or try to, and it'll rob nutrients. So that's what we do. We pinch that off. And again, here's another one. They grow fast, but those are suckers, and we don't want the suckers. We take those off. And here's another one right here. Cut that off. And another one, a little one right there. But those are suckers, and this is a good example of our tomatoes growing vertical, which is what we want. And that's pruning. And here's a vine. It's got two down here in the bottom. This was probably a sucker that got, yeah, it is. That's a sucker that should have been trimmed off, but that's what happens if you don't take care of your suckers. When this happened, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just learning. And but now I've got two main vines, and that's not what you want. You want one main vine, and just provide nutrients. The plant needs to provide nutrients for that vine. But you can see they're beautiful plants. They don't take up much room, and by pruning them properly, you can get 14-inch spacing between your plants, and that's plenty of room because everything goes vertical. And this one goes up and up and up, and I've got to on this one here, I'm just going to take the top out. This will stop it from growing, because I don't want it to grow any higher, because it'll just fall over, like this one's starting to do right here. Growing up too far, and now it's going to fall over. But that's my Mittleider attempt, and not perfect, but I've learned a lot this season. Next season, I'll just have a single row of tomatoes 14 inches apart, and I'll keep the area along the watering pipe clear, and so it'll be easy to put the weekly feed in. If you let that get too dense, this year I had double rows of tomatoes, and I think that made it harder for me to put the weekly feed down. So next year I think I'll do just a single row, which will give me plenty of tomatoes. I've got more tomatoes than I can deal with right now with one 30-foot row. Mittleider. I'm a Mittleider method advocate.